Stitching inside each patch a story, every thread song binding love and fabric where we belong. Every stitch a whispered prayer.
Hello everybody. Hi, I'm Lisa Capen with Lisa Capen Quilts, also known as the Quilt Maker Homestead. So you say you've never made a pixel quilt before? Well, guess what? You're in good company because neither have I. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna dive in and we're gonna have fun and we're gonna explore pixel quilts by making a butterfly. And it's gonna be so much fun. Hi everybody. I see we've had a couple questions before we get started. I have a feeling your questions will be answered as we dive into the PDF. Now, this will be a free quilt project for as long as this is up on YouTube. So if you want to make this quilt and you're watching sometime later, jump down to the description box. There's a link. It'll bring you over to my Patreon page, but the pattern download is free. Okay, you don't have to be a paid member of Patreon to get this pattern and have fun making this butterfly pixel quilt. Hi everybody. It's so great to see you. So just as we get started, y'all, we're doing this series live. And this video, the introduction, part 1 of this whole series is going to be the longest because we are diving in and we are going to make one chunk of this quilt and it's going to take some time. Every week after, I'm releasing 1 or 2 parts of this quilt. You never know. Stay tuned each week to find out. But I won't be doing the sewing and the pressing part with you each week because I have a feeling that it's going to be time consuming. We're going to be here for a hot minute today. So if you're watching on the replay, you have the beauty of hitting the 2 times faster, 4 times faster, or skipping around and moving to where you want to see, right? But if you're here live, I hope you have some time to hang out with me. And if you have to leave before we're done, come back to see my finished chunk of this quilt, okay? Hi, everybody. So I've never made a pixel quilt before. I designed this quilt between Inkscape and EQ8. Yeah, Electric Quilt 8, yes. I'm getting all my softwares confused, y'all, because I was just working in Brilliance. And I wanted to make sure that I was saying the right thing. EQ8, do you have it? Have you ever thought about getting it? It is so much fun. I designed this quilt to finish at 40 inches by 40 inches. We're constructing this quilt with 1.5 inch squares. You can use 1 inch squares. Just know that your quilt's not going to be as big. It's going to be probably half the size, or like 3/4 of the size of my quilt, right? If you already have a grid, that's a 1 inch grid. But guess what? I'm giving you a free 1.5 inch grid and I'm going to show you how to use it today. Okay? But if you've already bought fusible interfacing that is gridded at 1 inch, you can use it. Cut your squares smaller than mine. Cut them at 1 inch instead of 1.5, okay? Kathy made it to alive. Donna says, yes, I'm glad being here for a hot minute. I'm going to keep you company this afternoon. I'm breaking up. Is it just me? Kathy says I'm good. I hope I'm good because I have a lot to share with you. Okay, and I hope it's not my internet, although it is cloudy and hazy outside, so who knows? All right, so let me bring you down to my desk, okay? We're going to go ahead and just start diving into this. And I'm hoping that if you're on the fence about doing this quilt, seeing what I'm doing and breaking it down the way I'm doing it is going to be enough to persuade you to give this a try. It's buffering. Oh no. I'm going to keep going, y'all. Okay, so let's go to my desk. And you know what? I forgot to turn this off for a minute. I'm going to take that off the screen for a minute. We haven't gotten that far yet. So the PDF, okay, so the PDF, there's 2 PDFs. When you click on the link down below, download them both. Okay, one It's the information for this quilt and a grid. All right, I've already glued my grid together. It's pretty easy, and I'll show you here in a second. And then the information for the quilt. Disregard where it says a 16-week quilt project. Y'all, this has been done since last year. And I was going to spread it out over 16 weeks, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Some weeks I'm going to give you two chunks of information, and we're going to get done before 16 weeks is up, okay? So just ignore that right there, but everything else is accurate, okay? So to make the quilt at the size I'm doing with the squares I'm doing and the grid that I'm giving, we're cutting 1.5 inch squares. Now I'm using all scraps. You could choose to buy fabric like some people have specific for this quilt that we still haven't seen yet. I'm choosing to use scrap fabrics that I already have. All right. You will need for the back of this quilt 1.5 yards. You won't use all of that, but you need 1.5 yards to have enough for some extra overage on all 4 sides, right? So 1.5 yards. The quilt batting, you'll need a piece that is 42 by 42, and that gives you like 1 inch overage on all 4 sides if you decide to quilt this. The finished size of this quilt will be 40 inches by 40 inches. Okay? You're going to need some lightweight fusible interfacing, about 8 yards. So if you're using Pellon P44 like I am, you'll need about 8 yards. Okay? And from that interfacing, you're going to cut 16 squares that measure 17 by 17 or slightly bigger. You'll see today I've cut my fusible interfacing slightly bigger than 17 by 17, and I will square up my piece once it's all sewn together. Okay, but it needs to be at least 17 by 17 inches. Okay, you'll need 16 squares. That means we're doing 16 chunks of this quilt and then assembling it all together. Each chunk has 100 1.5 inch squares, which means we certainly do need 1,600 1.5 inch squares cut from our fabrics. That's a lot. Now, ways that you can cut squares faster. They have slotted rulers that you can cut 1.5 inch strips from your fabric, yardage or scraps, right? There are 1.5 inch dies. So if you have one of those big daddies or go cutters, the big go cutter dies, right? I have seen a 1.5 inch square. I don't know if it's still available or not. You could use a cutting machine. However, that would take a really long time, right? I started off using a slotted ruler to cut my strips, but I found that that was taking me even longer. Do you want to know how I cut my little squares? With a regular ruler and my rotary cutter. And that was the fastest way for me. And we're all different, right? But I went through my scraps, ironed them flat, and cut them into strips. And then cut those strips into squares. I spent about 1.5 hours cutting, which you're going to see here today. Okay. The colors for this quilt, and there's a little picture up here on the top, right? We're going to be using assorted greens, yellows, blues, blacks. There's even a couple pops of a red in there. Okay. But just know that this quilt is subjective. So if you want a yellow butterfly, substitute yellow fabrics instead of blue. If you want a pink butterfly, substitute your blue fabrics for pink. One thing I'm going to stress throughout this entire quilt project is I'm not issuing any rules. There are no color restrictions. I want you to get creative with your fabrics and think outside the box. You can make yours just like mine. You can make it different. Of course, they're going to start cutting the grass today. All right, Darlene has a quick. Darlene, I'm so glad you're here. You were one of the main advocates for this quilt project. If we have 1.5-inch grid interfacing, how big do we make our 16 squares? Just 17 by 17. You won't have, oh, yes, yes. Ultimately, it's going to end up at 17 inches by 17 inches, okay? The main pest, you mean? No, you weren't a pest. You were a motivator, darling. Okay, some supplies that might be helpful for this quilt. I used my little light pad to glue together my paper grid, so that might be useful. You could use a window, right, if you don't have a light pad, but I used it to line up and glue together my grid. I'll show you that here in a second. Washable glue sticks. I have opted to use a wet glue, and I'll show you that here in a minute. An iron. You're going to need some thread and some scissors and lots of little fabric squares, right? The main instruction for this week, right, is to print off and glue together the grid supplied in this PDF and keep it, because you're going to use this grid each time we start to assemble our chunks. Okay, keep your paper grid. And I'm going to just read this here at the bottom, okay, because I feel like maybe some of us need to hear it and allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to relax and have fun with this, okay? Each week I will supply a page, which is right behind here. I will supply a page size colored diagram that you can study for fabric and color placement of your pieces. I won't be giving specific color or fabric specs. I'm not going to tell you you have to use a dark green fabric here or a bright yellow or a dark yellow. I'm not going to give you those things. Okay? This quilt is an exercise in seeing the difference in tones of fabric of the same colorways and how they relate to one another. And this quilt is subjective. Like, I feel like I should have highlighted that word, because what you see when you look at your quilt, somebody else might see something differently. It's all subject to who's seeing it, right? I will be using a wide range of leftover scrap fabrics that I have on hand, and I have them in this little box here, or what I've cut so far. Okay. Yeah, Menzie said, or a clear Pyrex dish with a flat bottom and your phone under it with a flashlight, instant light board. That works too. Okay, so those are your instructions. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to assemble my chunk here in just a second. In this week's download, you're going to find, I had it right the first time, this page, right? This is our guide to assembling the first chunk. This is the first chunk of our butterfly quilt, and we're starting at the very top left hand corner, and we're going to work across the top of the quilt, and then we're going to start going row by row. Okay, so this is the very top left corner of this quilt. What do you see when you see this, right? You see lots of different greenish fabrics. Some are lighter than others, right? Some have some yellows in them, right? And in person, not so much on the camera, you've got two light blue squares right down here. So we're going to have fun playing with some fabrics today. And instead of fabrics, I've kind of just thought about this as like little blocks of paint, right? That's how I'm going to view it. And so here in a minute, I'm going to pull this up on the screen, because my suggestion is if you print this off, the colors on the screen, if you open your PDF on your laptop or your computer screen or your iPad, the colors are brighter and easier to see than they are when you print them. So perhaps maybe save yourself some ink and pull up this part of the PDF on your screen and refer to it that way, right? But I will be given this as a printable each week. All right. So that's that. Let me show you this grid. Let me move. No, I don't want to move that too far. I have such a limited amount of space here. Let me pull in this grid, okay? The grid comes in 6 pages and you're going to cut it apart and glue it together, right? This is page 1, 2, and page 3 is just a sliver of a piece, right? You're gonna glue it, you're gonna cut it apart and glue it, and make sure that these lines overlap each other, right? That's gonna give you an accurate placement of your grid. And so it comes together in a row like this, and then in a row like this, right? This is page 4, 5, and 6. And then you'll trim off the extra on the top and glue it right down the middle like this. Okay, so the back of mine looks like this. You can see I cut mine and left just a little bit of overage, enough to do a little run of glue. Okay, and I didn't use a glue stick. I used a wet glue because I feel like the wet glue is stronger than a glue stick. You can do a glue stick if you want, but we're going to be working with this a lot, moving it back and forth, and I really wanted it to stay nice and bonded, so I used some wet glue. All right, so you're going to glue your 6 pages together, and it's going to be a grid just like this, right? There's 100 squares, 100 1.5-inch squares for this grid. And then we're going to take a piece of Pelon P44F, if that's what I'm using. Any kind of fusible interfacing will work. Some are going to be thicker and stiffer, which might make it a little bit harder to work with, but you know, you can give whatever you have a try and see if it works for you. But look how I can just lay this interfacing over top of my grid, and I don't even have to use a light pad for this part, right? I can see right through that interfacing. Now you might want to get some pins, right? And that's why I said on the first page when it says to cut your interfacing at 17 by 17, or make it a little bit bigger so that you can pin your interfacing to your paper so it doesn't shift as you are placing all of your fabric squares, okay? And this is how we are making our own gridded interfacing without specifically going out and buying gridded interfacing, okay? Y'all know me, I'm a little bit of a tightwad. So just like that, I have pinned the interfacing to my paper, and this part is ready to go, okay? Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you. How are you doing? So let's take a look at a couple of examples of some stuff that I worked with before we dive in and I start to show you the fabrics that I've picked out, right? I want you to see the size of this grid in paper. It's a pretty good chunk, right? It seems really big. And if you're just looking at this and you're thinking, wow, we're gonna do 16 of these, this quilt's gonna have some really good size to it. But what you don't see by just looking at this are the seam allowances, and there are a lot of seam allowances. So once we have placed all of our fabrics and bonded them, we're gonna sew them with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and everything starts to shrink in. Okay, so see this size here? This is the actual finished size of this grid once you have added all your fabrics and sewn all your seams. Okay, see the size difference? It's a big size difference. Like you can't even see the bottom of this grid here in the camera, right? The cool thing about doing this, y'all, is you don't have to stress out about accurately cutting your 1.5-inch squares. Like if a little sliver is missing, it's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about precisely piecing to make sure all of your points match, because the beauty of the method that we're doing, it takes all of that and eliminates it. The interfacing is gonna do the hard work for us so that we can just play and have fun, okay? And it looks like I've painstakingly pieced one at a time, and chain pieced a row and then assembled my rows. Nope, I did not. And it turned out perfect, right? So each one of these finished squares measures 1 inch. Okay, so if you are using a 1-inch grid, meaning your grid is smaller than the one I'm giving you, know that these squares will finish even smaller. Okay, that's a pretty good little size finished square right there. Okay, now when I first designed this quilt, I designed it where we were cutting now I done forgot now. I want to show you this. This was the size we were going to do. And this was almost too small. I think I cut these. Oh, hold on, I can tell you. Oh no, I can't. I don't have a ruler really. That's a 1/2 inch plus 1/4 and 1/4. I don't know now, y'all. I forget. Look how small that is. Anyway, I wanted our quilt to have some good size, and this was much easier to do than this was. Okay. Also, I brought these in to show you the difference in pressing your seams. So when we get to that part, I'm going to reference these two pieces again. Okay. Wow, I hope your wrist is feeling better. All right, so let's talk, let me show you some fabrics, okay? Now, I have a couple more boxes that are gonna be here tomorrow because I'm gonna need like at least one more, possibly 2, right? But I've been talking to a couple of people who are on the fence about doing this quilt because they just don't know how they would stay organized with all the little squares, right? Look at this little container. It's a embroidery floss container, right? I only had one empty one, so I'm making it work for now until my other ones show up. But look, when I open up the top, it's like a watercolor palette. Only those are fabric squares, right? So these are the greens and some yellows and a couple blues that I've already cut to get started with this quilt. Yes, each one of these is 1.5 inches, right? And I just separated them into their own little wells, and it's kind of like a watercolor palette, right? So you know what? We're ready to dive in. Okay, so just know that what I'm getting ready to show you is how I'm going to do it. And I always say there's more than one way to do anything. So if you don't like the idea of using a wet glue, or you think it's silly, and you just want to put a piece on and press it and go, right? Do that. No one's going to fuss at you if you do it slightly different than I do. Okay. All right, so these are all my greens. I've got a couple yellows, some lighter greens, right? And some darker greens. And this is what I'm going to get started with. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm working by this. I'm also going to pull it up on the screen because I might move this out of my way at some point. And I still want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So that's up on the screen there. And I'm not using the iron yet, okay? And let me just walk you through my thought process on this. And this is how I did this piece, the exact same way, okay? Look how flexible it is. And I used the glue, okay? And the fusible interfacing. It's flexible and I can sew through it if I desired to, okay? My plan is to treat this just like paint by numbers, okay? And let's talk about this grid for a second, because you're gonna see, let me get a little pointy tool here. Pointy tool, here we go. You're gonna see on your grid that this fabric, or this square, this one, this, and this are gridded as the same fabric, right? That's the same fabric repeated. And so is this, and so is all of this. There's a couple different greens right there, see that? And then this is the same as that, and then that is the same as this. See that when you really start looking at it? You can choose to do what I'm doing, which is I will use the same green fabric for all of these. I will use a different fabric, still green, for all of these. I'll use a brighter green square right here, and right here, and right here, and right here, and these will all be the same. This, and this are like a pale green. I'll use the same pale green in all 4 spots, right? Now you might find it useful. You might say, you know what? I think I'm going to label each one of these fabrics so I don't get confused, right? Because don't forget, this is the first chunk. Each chunk might be still using some of these same fabrics, right? So you might say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. We've got one different green up here. I don't see, I've marked it yet. N, O. See that? And so, with your colors, whatever you've decided to use as A, you could make a little marker, right? You could make yourself a little marker and say, these are my A fabrics. And so, not only in this week, but in weeks to come, you don't have to try to remember what you've used. You can refer back to this and your little markers, right? So that's one way to stay organized and sort of planned scrappy, right? Or planned. Now, I will say that each one of these is a value of that color. And value, when I say value, I'm really just referring to light, medium, and dark. Do you know what I'm saying? Most of all of these are greens, but you're going to see you have some really darker greens, some sort of medium greens, and some lighter greens. And so paying attention to that, it doesn't so much matter if this light green has polka dots on it or not, right? And if this is solid or striped. But this being darker and this one being medium and this one being a light, that's what's going to make or give you the appearance of bushes in the background with highlights and shadows and dark areas and light areas, right? Okay. Okay, so that's how I plan on staying organized, okay? And I'm gonna just start diving in. I haven't already pre-assigned colors yet. I haven't even started to think. I just cut and I'm ready just to start this quilt, okay? And so I'm gonna just start right up here in this corner, and I'm gonna pick a mid-tone green from my box. Not so much a lighter one, but sort of a mid-tone green. You know what? I wonder if I have enough of these squares cut. We're gonna go for it. And if I run out, then I will say that that was a fabric choice, right? So what I'm gluing with today is Aleene's tacky glue. This is the original tacky glue. Yes, you can sew through it once it's dry. No, it's not going to break your needle or gunk up your machine because it'll be dry. Quilters have used this for years in their art quilts and even showpiece award-winning art quilts. Quilters have used this for a really long time. Okay, so this is not new in the quilt making, okay? But I'm not using large amounts. I'm gonna use a little drop of glue just to put the fabric there, right? Like that. And that's how I'm gonna place all my fabrics. And then I can make some color changes if I want because nothing has been pressed. I'll be able to take that fabric off and replace it if I want to, okay? Once I see the chunk all together, I'll get a good idea of how it's looking, and I can replace the fabrics if I want to. And another reason why I use this, because I only want to bring out the iron one time and press this all at the same time, but I don't want to have to worry about shifting the paper and all of these pieces moving. So I'm just going to tack them down with a little bit of glue right in the middle and press everything at the end. Okay? Donna says, you have thought of everything for us to succeed. Let me just tell you, when I pulled this out, I remembered our conversation from last night, Donna, and you were saying you didn't know how you would handle having all the little pieces of fabric. Find a little storage box. Darlene has some embroidery boxes already. Perfect. Muffin tins would work too. Oh, they would. That would be great. Okay. Just know that I'm going to miss lots and lots of comments because I'm really trying to focus. If you have a question, let's try to type it in all caps and maybe that'll catch my eye. Okay. And if I miss your comment or your question, I apologize in advance, okay? So I've already said that this was going to be a fabric. I'm going to label them A. I've pulled out my little card, which this piece up here is hiding, right? So I'm going to just start doing little dots of glue. 1, 2, 3, 4. I like Aleene's tacky glue because it's thick. But see how I'm just daubing and sort of rubbing it in? It's not going to soak through the fabric. Sometimes, well, I love Elmer's school glue. Sometimes if you're working with a thinner fabric, it will soak through the fabric. And some of my fabrics are on the thinner side. So I'm going with Aleene's tacky glue. You're going to center your little squares right in that grid, okay? Right in that grid. Just like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I've got 2 here. I think what I'm going to do is just work like this while I have this fabric out. There's one. There's one. Oops. Maybe I need to use more glue. Because I can see this one is not sticking. There we go. There we go. Stick. Okay, and then it goes up like this and right there. I can tell I need a new bottle of glue. Of course I do. All right, and then we skip one and come down here. And diagonal 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. See how I'm just working in patches, right? The hardest decision you have to make is what fabric am I going to use? I really just want to use just small little dots of glue just to keep these in place as I'm working, right? I really want the interfacing to do its job. So I'm not trying to cover that whole square up with glue. The interfacing will bond with the fabric once we apply the heat to it. I'm just trying to tack it all in place so nothing shifts around, right? And then it comes down like this, and there's one here. And one here. And then it jumps down and does this little number right here. I can already see I need a new bottle of glue in my future. And you might be thinking to yourself, because you have a different viewpoint than I'm kind of looking sideways at it, right? You might be thinking, Lisa, that square is crooked. The fourth one on the top row. It's okay. Because doing this method is going to allow forgiveness for wonkiness. And you're going to see it turns out perfect. All right, so we did those two. Now I'm running diagonal. See that? The glue is going to hold that in place so I can work in a small area, right? I'm running diagonal and all the way to the end. And then diagonal and all the way to the end. What I do with my, oh, here they are. There's one. What's really cool about this is once you've decided what fabrics you're going to use, it doesn't require a lot of brain power. You know what I'm saying? You could have an audiobook on or a movie on, the music on, the grandkids over. They could even help you do this part, right? Did I not put any glue there? There we go. Because this is just lining little fabrics on the grid. Stay. Do you want to know the sad part is I'm going to run out of these. I sure am. That's okay. So that's what we have for those. You know what? I'm gonna bring in, let's bring these in. The beauties of the live. I guess they don't call this tacky glue for nothing. That's sort of really dark though, isn't it? Let's pull that up. Let's go with, yes, I think this is better. There we go. Stay. Oh yeah, Davey said my fan might be drying the glue faster than I can work with it. That's true, because I have an overhead fan and a fan blowing on me. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, and then right here. Fortunately, I think I have some more of this green polka dotted fabric that I can cut more squares from. I think. If not, it's not the end of the world. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3 right there. I'll put this back. Working with this one. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. And then we're working from this top corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have I convinced you yet to start this quilt? I see, like, we have 24-hour quilt retreats, right, on Patreon, which are a blast. But this is a good project to take up a good amount of time, right? But you can still talk and not really, you know, have to focus so much on being so exact. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This would be a good project for something like that. So if you have sewing bees and y'all are looking for something to do, this would be fun. And then one right here. And I think that is the last one of this. I think it is. So we can switch to a different color. So I'll put that paint away, right? Yes, like diamond painting. Exactly, Karina. That's exactly right. All right. You could certainly do this with a glue stick too. All right. Actually, I have glue stick written on the very first page. I've just decided to use a wet glue. Okay. All right, so let's choose, this is probably the darkest green we're going to be using in this chunk. So let me choose, I choose you, Pikachu, right here. And I'm going to call this one B. I'm going to put that little card A with the fabrics that I had left over from the second set of A fabrics, right? And this will be my B's. So everywhere that this fabric is, I'm going to use this one, right? I gotta wait for my glue to go to the tip of the bottle. Debbie, I made this design, it was a combination effort. I designed the butterfly in Inkscape as a PNG. And then I brought the PNG into EQ8 and did the pixel quilt in EQ8. So there's that dark one. And now let's come over and work, because see, it starts right there, so that'll be an easy placement. There's 2 diagonals right there, 1, 2. One, 2. And then it skips this one and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skips that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stay. Stay. The interfacing has little glue dots, right? So the fabrics just want to slip and slide all over it. And if you get any wet glue on your fingertips, you're going to move that fabric around. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Glenda, you're so welcome. I'm glad you love it. Do y'all hear Dolly dreaming behind me? She's on the floor behind me. She dreams. She has running marathons in her dreams. She barks at things in her dreams. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. She is snoring up a storm behind me. Y'all, this week we had, my refrigerator went out. And it's so sad because it was like my dream refrigerator. It was, we loved that refrigerator. It was one with a glass door where you knock on it, knock, knock, and the door lights up and you can open up just the little part of the door to get the drinks and stuff. You didn't have to open up the big part of the fridge. It was only like 3.5 years old. The whole fridge, everything in the freezer and the refrigerator lost before we even knew it. All right, I'm coming down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. That was a mess. I told Harlan, I said, it's such a good thing, you know, that we've started learning how to preserve foods in other ways, we did lose quite a bit in the freezer. There's some things that I just prefer freezing. Do you know what I'm saying? But a good portion of our garden was canned or freeze dried last year. So, you know, as much as we lost, it could have been way worse. Do you know what I'm saying? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those two, that one. And I think that's all of those. All right, I'm going to keep my little card with that one. Okay, so now let's tackle this fabric here. We've got that patch there, and then 1 and 2 little lonely places right there use the same fabric. See that? It's the same pattern as this, and those 2 little spots right there. So let's choose what fabric we're going to use for that. And I had this in my scraps. I think I got it to do a St. Patrick's Day mug rug or something. It's got little shamrocks on it. I got it specific for a project, and I've never used it again, and it's been in my scrap bucket for several years now. And I just don't know that I'm going to use it on anything. And I was like, you know what? It has little shamrocks on it. That's super cute. But it'll kind of be like a hide and seek in the quilt. You know what I mean? It's not a fabric I would include in a lot of projects. But in this, I somehow think it works. Janet, this is your first live with me. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so we're going to name this one C. And I'm going to start right up here. You can see 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's work in little patches so my glue doesn't dry completely up. There's 1, 2. Fortunately, we were able to get a new fridge because wouldn't you know it, Harlan's been on a work trip. He left for a work trip the day after the refrigerator went bad. So fortunately, he had to drive hours away to get it. But you know what? We went with a simple, basic refrigerator because you know what? That was a hard lesson to learn. We spent a lot of money on that refrigerator. And we've just sort of just realized that these days, everything is just made to be disposable. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they just don't make things like they used to. All right. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1. 2. 3. 4. So that's that patch, and then we have this random one down here that goes right here. And then one other little random right there, right above these two. See, nothing difficult about this, is there? I think that's all of those. So I can put these back, and that's my C. All right, so where are we at? We have, let's do these. They're sort of like a greenish yellow lighter fabric, right? So let me find one for that. It's not exactly yellow. It's a lighter green. And I'm going to call this one E. So E is right there. Come on, glue. And then 1, 2, and over. 1, 2, and over. I talk to myself all day, and this is what I sound like all day. So there's that one. And then 1, 2, and over 2. 1, 2, and over 2. Now, I will say this. I feel like I'm working pretty quickly. If I were just doing this on my own and like listening to music, I would be more chill, and I'd probably be a little bit slower. Do you know what I mean? I probably would not be working this fast. And that's all of those. That was E. And then, did I miss that one right there? 1, 2, 3. What is that? Oh, I haven't filled that in yet. Let's do that one. I'm confusing my own self. All right, this one's a little bit brighter, but not bright. And we're calling this one D. See what happens? I mess my own self up. Okay, so D is right above this one and right above that one. That's why I confused myself. Let's do that, because that and that is the same. Are there any more of those? Yes, up at the top. Now what is under that, I've labeled O, which is another like yellow, limeish color green, right? But I'm going to go with, what am I going to go with? Because I don't have limeish green colors. I'm going to go with this one. Because there are no rules. I'm going to put that one right there. And let me just double check, but I think that's the only one that uses that particular fabric on this particular grid. So those will be my O's. Now we're going to come down here. Let's see where we haven't filled in yet. Yes, counting and learning counting in school comes in handy here. But you don't have to know calculus or algebra or none of that stuff. Okay. Let's come down here and do these two. These are like light blues, okay? Not extremely bright, but light blue. So for these two, I cut these. There's one, and here's one. Now, the difference is, you could choose to do the same exact blue in both of these places if you wanted to. In the big scheme of things, who's gonna know? Do you know what I'm saying? Who's ever gonna know? I'm not gonna tell anybody. We're gonna call this one G and this one H. I will use two different fabrics. And there they are. Then we have a yellow. We have a couple yellows on this, right? Here's a spot of yellow, and here's a couple yellows right in there. These are different. You can really see it if you look on the computer screen, right? Or like right below me. See that group of yellow over towards the right on the edge? Those are the same. And the one all the way to the left next to the blues is a little bit darker. Now, could you use the same yellow if you wanted to? Yes, you could. You could. Absolutely. I call this one I. Not only that, do you see how, well, I ran out of the A fabric, right? So I've used two different A fabrics. But in all the places that are the same for A, if you used different fabrics, but they all sort of are medium green, that would be okay. What you're looking for is the contrast between the dark areas and the light areas. If that means this mid-tone green you're breaking up into 5 different mid-tone greens, fine, right? But what's going to make this look like a picture when you stand away and look at it is the differences in the contrast between your green, your dark greens, and your lighter greens, and your pops of yellow, right? Remove the computer square so it's distracting and hard to see the block. Okay. You can see that much more. All right, so there's the I. Let's come up here and do this patch of yellow, and I'm going to call this one L. If you want to use numbers to number your fabrics instead, you certainly could. If you don't want to number anything and you're just working by sight and color, you certainly could do that too. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 3 are going to be my yellows up here. There's 1, 2, and 3. that goes with those. All right, this group here is a different sort of darker brown, right? It's darker than what we've used up through here. So I'm going to use this one. And then we have one random one down here too, right? This and these three are the same as that. That's not different. This one, and those three are the same. And we're going to call them J. So J is going to come right down here at the bottom. Like that. And then it's going to fit right in there. Whoopsies. And then I'm going to slide this up and we're going just like this. 1, 2, 3. What are we missing? We've got this one. That can go back to where you came from, right there. This one I've called F. Where's my D's? I missed a D. I missed a D right there. Three F's right there. What fabric are we going to use for F? I will use this for F. No. I'll use this for F. 1, 2, 3. And then there's an F over here. Right there. And up here. And you might be thinking, Lisa, this looks like a hot mess. That's really the cool part about pixel quilts. Have you ever noticed that? Like when you were working at this level on a pixel quilt, it doesn't look like anything at all. The magic happens with a pixel quilt when it all comes together, right? And you step away from it. Then you see the picture, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was all of those. What am I missing here? Oh, here's another F right there. Right there. K. Whoops, I missed 2 of these right there. All right, that was F. K, 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 and this. I'm missing those 2 right there, which were the B's. 1, 2. Now we want a little bit of a brighter green. Brighter green. Let me see what I've got here. Here we go. I feel like I'll be way more organized when I get my additional boxes. I can spread these colors out because I just sort of have them stacked in there. And it's hard to see exactly what I've got. There's 1, 2, and 3. And my grid is covered. I'm going to turn on my iron and let that start warming up. And I'm going to make a little card for these that says K. There we go. And now I can just close up my little paint palette, right? I can get rid of this. I'll put those off to the side. Oops. And I'm going to bring up my pressing board, okay? And before I press it, I'm going to take the pins out of the interfacing and separate that from the paper. We're going to save our paper so we can reuse it next week, and I've glued my interfacing to it. I knew that was going to happen. If you use a glue stick, that won't happen. Ask me how I know. I used a glue stick on those 2 smaller ones. But because we're live, it's gonna stick. Of course it is. Really? Yeah, Wanda said the way her mind works is bring in a glue stick for the ones that fall off. She would go row by row. And I totally get that, right? Let's just start bonding this so these don't fall off. Before I do that, since I have extra fusible all the way around the ends, I'm going to use a Teflon sheet because I don't want to bond my interfacing to my iron. Right, I have extra over the sides. So I'm going to just bring in a Teflon sheet. I'm going to fuse this so I can pull it away from the paper, even if I have to rip the paper. At least my fabrics won't be falling off, okay? I can always print off another grid. A Teflon mat would probably work. The Aleene's tacky glue is thick, right? And it's going to soak through, evidently, the Pellon P44F and stick to the paper. Now, a glue stick probably won't go through the Pellon. And that's what I've used before. And even the Elmer school glue, I've also used that and it didn't soak through the Pellon. The Celine's is a different kind of glue, and I was thinking it would be thick enough to hold these in place as I worked around, right? And I do like that, but evidently it goes through the Pellon. So, lesson learned. I really wanted to separate it from the paper before I press it and reuse my grid, right? The heat from the iron is going to warp that paper a little bit. But worst case scenario is I'm going to just print off another grid for next week. I'm going to shift it down this way. I will say, if you have an iron that has steam, you might want to break it out for this project. Not this part of the project. Not for this part. But with the interfacing on the back side of these fabric squares, as we start doing the sewing part, you're going to have some thicker seams than what you're normally used to when just doing traditional piecing for quilt blocks, right? Because of that interfacing. You might find it helpful to use some steam when pressing your seams. Now, I didn't bring my iron over that I put water in because I just don't have the room over here. Today I'm going to use this iron to press as we're going along, but when this block is finished, I will probably steam the whole thing. Not during the live because I don't have it over here, but I will probably plug that iron in and give the whole block a good press with some steam. All right, I got a little bit left to press right over here. If I had worked on my glass part of my caterpillar, which is an idea, the glue wouldn't have stuck to that either. It would have just plucked right off. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure all these fabric bits are bonded to the Pellon. And then I'm going to wrestle with getting that paper off. This is not going to be pretty. I'm going to make lots of paper ruffling sounds. I ripped it. Okay, easier, Lisa. Note to self, just use the school glue, Lisa. You know what? My mama told me there would be days like this. And this is really worst case scenario that could happen to you. So there we go. Let's see if I can get that off without ripping it even more. That would be lovely. Done. And you're going to come back here and we will sew you first so you get locked in there. How about that? I'm going to give this one more good press. And I'm sewing it with paper chunks and all, okay? At this stage is when I would press it for real though. Now with your sewing machine, you're going to want to set it up with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, okay? Just like you would for normal piecing. Let's just get all 4 quadrants pressed one more time. There's that one. We're coming back over here one more time. And then down in this bottom corner one more time. I'm going to leave that extra interfacing on until everything has been sewn together. That's what I choose to do. All right, we're done with the iron for a little bit. I'm going to move this tacky glue for other projects, not this one. And now we're ready to start sewing, okay? Now, my rows are pretty straight because of the grid, right? But you're gonna see little spaces between my squares, right? That's okay because that's gonna be in the seam allowance. All right. I do think though, even though I want some extra, let's get rid of the bulk of the extra. I want to square this up once it's all sewn together. I'm going to get rid of a little bit of this extra right along the edges. See that? DB asked if spraying, it might have gotten the paper off. DB, I didn't even think about it. It might have. It might have loosened up the glue on the rest of this here on the top too. I don't know. Did I already trim this side? Let's trim it a little bit more. Look, you see how unprecise I'm being? And it's okay. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring this to the sewing machine, and we're gonna be sewing, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seams at the sewing machine, all with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and all going in the same direction, okay? And watch this. So this first row is gonna fold over just like that. See that? In that small little space in between each one of these fabrics, it allows it to just fold right on over just like that. We're going to do that continuously and work all the way through these 9 seams at one time at the sewing machine. Okay? Peggy said Abby's there and she's on her lap watching. Oh no, I'm out of water. Okay, let me make sure I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance set up here. Yes. Oh no, I hope I don't run out of bobbin thread. I didn't even check that. The cool thing is we're only sewing 9 and 9, 18 seams to put this whole big chunk together. Okay, we're gonna come on over to the sewing machine now. Finally. Let me scoot you over a little bit. Hopefully my head don't bump into the camera. And guess what? The sun is getting ready to come through and wash me out totally. It's that time of the day. All right, so I'm just folding over this first row. Just like so. See that? 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's our first seam. Now we're going to fold this over on the next seam right there, right? Just fold it right over, just like so. I'm sewing through the paper chunks and everything, y'all. All right, so that's number 2, and now we're going to fold it over on the next seam. Let's get rid of that loose parts anyway. My glory, Lisa. What kind of YouTube teacher are you anyway? All right. 1, 2, 3. Folding that right on over. Karina asked, would this work for other shapes as well? I don't know. I've never tried it. I don't see why not, but I've never tried it, so I can't tell you with certainty? Yes or no? See how we're just folding back? It's making sort of like an accordion looking, right? The hum of that sewing machine is glorious. Can I just say that? I'm not affiliated or sponsored by Baby Lock, but this machine runs like a Cadillac. I just have to say that. Okay. Nice, simple, long, straight seams. That's all you have to look and do, right? And just keep folding, working your way right across. Flatten it out and sew it. Don't mind my little slivers of paper. Yours won't have that. Years from now in a Zoom, one of y'all will say, Lisa, remember the time when you were doing the pixel quilt and your paper grid stuck to your interfacing? Remember that? And we'll have a good laugh. One thing I have found is if you can't find humor in situations, then you're probably pretty dang stressed out. You know what I'm saying? I have found I feel so much better when I can just laugh at myself. This is the last seam for this one because the bulk of it is over here, right? This one I'm gonna just flip it up like this and leave the bulk over there because it doesn't matter. All right, that's the first 9 seams. I'm going to come back over here. My desk. There we go. Sorry, I was reading comments. Does this... Darlene says, so far this seems much easier than paper piecing, but I will reserve judgment until I actually try it. I'm kind of in line with Catherine. Catherine says the hard work is cutting 1,600 pieces of small squares. But actually, all the pieces that I cut that are in that box, I cut from scraps this morning because there's nothing like waiting till the last minute to start a project, right? I cut them all this morning, about an hour and a half, and that's because my scraps are stored all bundled or jumbled up in bins, and nothing's pressed, nothing's flat, nothing's folded. So I had to iron each fabric I wanted to cut first. That was the longest part, right? If you're cutting from yardage, you can just start cutting, right? Okay, so let's talk about pressing these seams. Look at this. This is what we have after sewing the 9 seams. It looks like an accordion, right? Now it looks like a rectangle instead of a square because it's shrunken in due to those seam allowances, right? So it looks a little odd at this point. Okay, let's talk about pressing the seams because I feel like you have a couple options and it's going to be up to you what you decide to do. All right, I'm not going to say you have to do it one way, you have to do it another way. You have to do it the way you want to do it. So let me bring back these 2 examples. This was finished by pressing my seams open. All right, so that's what it looks like on the back, but look how little those finished squares are. There's as much fabric in the seam allowance on the back as there is fabric on the front. Do you see that? And I pressed my seams open. It's going to be so hard to tell in the camera and in this lighting, but look how flat those seams are on the front. I'm going to need you on iron. This one, same size squares, but the seams were pressed to the side. Now, do you see how much flatter the one on the left is versus the one on the right? I'm going to tell you, I like both of them. This one has more dimension in the quilt. If you were to make your whole quilt like this, I feel like that would have so much dimension in the quilt. If you were to step up and study it up close, this one is more interesting to look at for me. And that's me, right? This one is flatter. But if flat is your jam, you're going to want to press those seams open. Okay? On this one, I'm going to press them open. And here's why. It's faster. And I never thought I would hear myself say that, but it really is faster. I'm going to talk you through pressing with your seams to the side and nesting your seams. But for me, I found that it takes longer. Okay? And there's a really good video on Pixel Quilts. If you go watch Rob Abel, I hope I said his last name right. He did a quilt. It was like a pixel quilt of a jukebox. And if you watch how he nests his seams, if nesting your seams and pressing your seams to the side is what you want to do, and I'm not making any sense when I go through an explanation for you, I would go watch that video. Matter of fact, I'll probably, let me write it down. I'll tag it in the video description because he walks you through nesting your seams. But this is the look it gives you, and this is the difference, okay? I'm going to press my seams open on this quilt. Link Rob's Pixel video. I can't do it right this second, but shortly when the live is over, I'll grab that link and add it to the video description box so you can check it out, okay? You also might see some other things that he does that might be helpful for you too. So what we're going to do, I'm going to walk you through it. If you want to nest your seams and press your seams to the side, you have to take a pair of sharp scissors that cut to the tip, right? And you're going to snip. snip, 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 snip. Everywhere where there's going to be a seam where these two blocks come together, you would snip, 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 snip. That's what, like 50 some snips. I forget, I don't know how many snips. That's a lot of snips you gotta do. And then you would press these to this side and press this row to that side, and this row to this side, and this row to that side, and this row to this side, and this row to that side. And it would lay like that because you've snipped all of the intersections, right? I did it on this small piece, and for me it just seemed like it took so much longer. So I'm going to open these seams up and press them open. Okay, that's what I'm choosing to do. Now to do that, you got to bring in scissors again, right? Because to open this up, it has the fusible interfacing on the back side. So that is just fused right there. There's no way to open that up unless we cut it. Now you can take a pair of scissors. It's sort of like a loop, right? You can take a pair of scissors and cut right through there, keeping that full 1/4 inch seam allowance. See how my scissors are going right through there? And when I do, now I can open that seam up, or you can take a pair of scissors and cut off the top ridge of each one of these seams, which is faster. It'll give you less of a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but we're only just taking off the very ridge, right? That's what I'm gonna do. We just have to go through 9 of those. Just being careful. I'm just cutting off the very ridge. Or I'm trying to. I'm live, so who knows what's gonna happen. See, just that top little ridge. And then I'm going to go to the next one. You could slide a pair of scissors right in there. See that? But I'm much faster doing it this way. Doing the little snips kind of reminded me of back in the day when I was making a whole bunch of rag quilts. There's the little snips right off that ridge. Now I'm on to the third one. I'm glad I warned y'all about being here for a hot minute. Going through this whole entire process takes a minute, right? But for the next following parts of this series, we're not doing all of this every Friday. I will probably place my fabrics and fuse them, right? We don't have to talk every week about the materials we need for the quilts and all of that. I'll probably just lay my fabrics down. We'll chit chat while I'm doing it, and I'll fuse them. But then off camera, I'll do all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? But for this first video, see that sun coming right in? You can't even see me. For this first video, I want you to see the entire process. And let me just tell you, real art is messy. Can I just tell you, if you're not making a mess, are you even making anything? Now, had I chose to snip all the seams, we'd still probably be on row 3. But we're just working our way right through. I'll be glad when that sun passes over. Now we're on to this one. Just trying to pay attention because the sun is in one of my eyes. And I don't want to mess up and cut too much off. Do you know what I'm saying? I want enough to press open. All right, we have 2 more, y'all, and then we're pressing. I will say, if you just slide your scissors through and trim without cutting this ridge off, it's a lot less messy. You won't have all these little slivers of fabric everywhere. So if you've just tuned in and you're like, what the heck is she doing? That's too messy. I'm not doing this quilt. You don't have to do it this way. All right, this is the last one. I can tell you this, I'm getting hungry. It feels weird not having Harlan home. It is really weird. Okay, that's all of our seams. And now, glory. We're gonna start opening them up and pressing them. Okay? Which has never been my favorite thing to do, but on this particular quilt, it is the fastest thing to do. Believe it or not, I hope my iron's not too hot for this interfacing. Let's give it a... Okay. Are you on? Yes. I'm usually, y'all know, I'm usually press your seams to the side kind of a quilter. But for this project, I'm a press your seams open kind of person. Actually, Harlan will be home tomorrow, so that'll be good. So there's one seam. That interfacing adds some thickness to the seams. So see how it's, maybe you can't see with the sun coming in. It's not laying completely flush and flat. So that's why I said if you have an iron with steam in it, I probably wouldn't use steam with the interfacing side up. Do you know what I'm saying? But once it's all pressed open, I would flip it over and press it from the front, and I would use some steam. And that's just me. Peggy says her sewing room is messy. All right, that's 2. Y'all, I'm trying to go as quick as I can because I know y'all have other stuff to do. And it's getting close to supper time. I didn't cut that little ridge of interfacing off. Pink. That's sun in the afternoon. I have a set of triangle windows up near the roof in this room. And this time of the day, it sneaks right through there. Hannah said, how about using a clapper? I think a clapper would be very helpful. I don't have one. Just know I'm working primarily by feel because I can't see not a dang thing. Not a single thing. Oh, but Beverly said, could you use the seam ripper? That's a really good idea, Beverly. I tell you what, we're getting ready. If I can press these seams any faster, we're getting ready to sew the 9 seams going the other way. And guess what? We have to open those up too. So I'll pull out a seam ripper and we'll give it a go because I haven't tried that. If it cuts through it easy, the Pellon, I ripped the Pellon getting the paper off, so that's how easy it tears, right? That's a really great idea. And if it works, it would not make all that slivery mess that I made with my scissors. All right, I have to scoot this closer to me. I feel like I'm reaching. One piece word of encouragement for this week, right, with this quilt is after you've gone through selecting your fabrics and cutting umpteen gazillion bazillion little tiny squares. Let me flip this over so I'm not reaching. Once you've gone through and you've done all that, then you've sewn your 9 seams going this way. And you're pressing all these seam allowances open, right? And then you're gonna sew 9 seams going the other way, and you're gonna press all those seams open. When the final reveal of this piece, and you look at it, and it doesn't look like anything that you can decipher, nothing recognizable shows up, Do not get discouraged. Everything in this chunk is like shrubbery and bushes behind the butterfly. And if you look at the main picture of the quilt, you can tell that by looking at that picture. But there's no defined shapes in that background anyway. It's an illusion of bushes and shrubs behind the butterfly. So after you've gone through all this work and you're like, this doesn't look like anything, don't judge it yet, right? We've still got a long ways to go with this quilt. There's all my 9 seams. I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to press it from the front. And then we're going to bring this back to the sewing machine one more time today. Oh, it might dull the seam ripper blade. It might. We're going to try it anyway. Okay, let's go back to the sewing machine. I still don't think you're going to see me. I'm still here. Let's go back. Whew, that sun is bright. Okay, so there we are. I'm sewing with one eye, but just like before, we're flipping the row over, making sure you can see on the screen. Okay, flipping that row over, just like so. See that? We're still using the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just making sure that I don't flip those seams with that little lip right there. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's the first one. We're going to fold it back over. Flatten that out. Hi, Dolly. Are you waking up, girl? Yeah, you're getting hungry? Now you'll see when you're doing it that the first set of seams goes by much faster. Have a little bit more thickness because now we have that fabric in the seam allowance, right? It's not hard. It's just a little bit thicker. And my little loose parts of the seam, like right there and right there, want to catch on that little plate right there. So that's why I just keep lifting it up and flattening it out. Ooh, the sun is starting to pass. You can almost see me. See this right here? That's what's happening on the underside, right? That loose part of the seam allowance catches. See that? I'm trying to avoid that. Dolly, what are we gonna have for supper tonight? I have no idea. What are we going to have? We're just working our way right on through. I used to put tape there. On my Juki, I did put tape right there on that plate. But let me just tell you, this is the first time this tray's been on in a little over a month. Usually I have my embroidery. I usually have my embroidery module on. Because I've been doing a lot of embroidery. That seam ripper trick works really good, because I do think that that would be faster and less messier. Alright, guess what? We only have one left. But 18 seams to piece 100 small 1.5 inch pieces of fabric. That's not bad, right? Now, if I can find a seam ripper. If I have one close by. Do I? I'm gonna bring it down to my desk. Let me just see. That's the one I should have used. Aha. You stay there. I found one. Whew. Let's try the seam ripper. Ooh, that's not, look, it's almost gone. It's up here now. Couple more minutes. At least I can see what I'm doing now. I don't want you to see that side yet. Let's try it. Well, the pillon is, oh, there we go. It's getting it started is tricky. Well, I'm scared I'm gonna cut right through my seam. You could certainly do it. I think you need to be careful that your hand don't slip and you go through your seam. Right? You can certainly do it though. And probably, you know what? I've had this seam ripper for I don't know how long, a long time. And it's probably not the sharpest thing in the world. So, you see me struggling, right? It does work. If it's sharper, it would probably work better. But be careful, okay? I'm gonna go back to cutting because I think I'm a little bit safer doing that. Yeah, Darlene said, you're making me nervous. A rotary cutter would be quick. If you can just be careful. You just want to take off that ridge. You know what I'm saying? Just that ridge right there. Darlene said I'm making her nervous. I was making myself nervous, Darlene. I feel like if it was sharper, like newer, I probably wouldn't have to tug on it so much. It'd probably be a lot easier. If I were sitting in my chair watching TV and doing this, I would slip my scissors right in that loop and just cut right down, and it wouldn't even make a mess, right? Because I wouldn't have all these shavings here. So that wouldn't be a mess in my chair. But trying to get through to the next part, you know, in a video, this is what I'm doing. I don't even mind having less seam allowance on the back. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like we've used a scant 1/4 of an inch. There's less bulkiness on the back side. And let me just tell you, if you're like, this looks like a major pain in the A, wait till you see the front and how perfect all of our points meet. And we didn't have to pin nothing. We didn't have to even really so much concentrate on a 1/4 inch seam allowance at the sewing machine. I mean, I set it for a 1/4 inch and I just sewed the line. Wait till you see the front. Oh, but when we lost our fridge and our freezer, fortunately, when we noticed it was bad, everything was going bad, I pulled the strawberries out and I'd been saving up strawberries from my garden this whole time. This whole time I had a full gallon size worth of strawberries that were picked like 6 and 8 at a time to save them up, to do anything with them, right? I was able to save my strawberries and I made 9 half pints of strawberry jam and they are delicious. You can't buy jam like that in the store. Well, not that tastes that delicious. Has anybody made cantaloupe jelly? I saw the recipe for that in the Ball cookbook. I think that's what it was, cantaloupe jelly. And that looks delicious too. I think I want to try that this year. This is the last one, y'all, and then we're pressing. Oh, the ball goes on the inside of the seam. A duh. Well, it's still not very sharp, Beverly. I'm sure that that would work just fine if it were sharp. The funny thing is, I have a newer seam ripper. That has a red handle on it. I'll have to hunt that one down because I'm not sure what drawer that is in, or which box, or which container I've put it in, but I know I have a newer one. Okay. Let's press these 9 seams. Yeah, cantaloupe jelly. But I love jelly, period, with all the sugar in it. But I've been trying to be really good here lately. Ooh, that's hot. I've been trying to be really good. That's where I cut it with the seam ripper. I didn't cut the interfacing all the way. There we go. I've been trying to be really good. I promise y'all, it's really not this hard. Have you ever done something and it just works like so easy until someone is watching you? That's what I struggle with. That's how I struggle. really not that hard. I will say it was much easier having the full 1/4 inch seam allowance to open it up like I did on the other one, and that was sliding my scissors through to cut that loop. Do you know what I'm saying? You have less fabric cutting that ridge off, so you can work with that information. Okay, you see me struggling. I really feel like this is something I want to do in my spare time. Dun, 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 dun. Like, I don't remember struggling on this part with that other one. I don't think I did. It could also be my iron, because see, this iron is a rounded, blunt. There's no pointy tip. I can see I'm going to be bringing in my other iron, my normal Black & Decker iron that I put water in, but it has a pointy tip, which helps open up those seams. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this little iron's, it gets hot. She will press it, but it doesn't have a pointy tip, which I think is helpful for opening those seam allowances up. So I want y'all to see the front. So I'm going to press it like this to at least make it flat. And then off camera, I'm going to bring in my pointy iron, and I'm going to work those seams on the back, because it really isn't that hard. But we could be struggling forever with this little baby iron with the rounded tip. Okay. But I want you to see the effect of using the interfacing in that grid, because if you were scared of piecing 100 tiny 1.5 inch squares and having them all perfectly straight, y'all see how haphazardly, willy-nilly I glued my little squares on the interfacing, right? You would never know. Look how perfectly straight, and look how my points meet. There was no pinning to match those seam allowances up, and they're all lined up and perfect, 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 perfect. Everywhere you look, it's perfect. Right? Now, like I said, when you're at this point and you turn it over and it's like, wow, it's all perfectly lined up, everything is perfect, but this does not look like anything. It's just one small part of a bigger picture. So don't get discouraged when you're like, what is that? And when somebody walks in and they're saying, what are you doing? And you say, I'm making a pixel quilt, and they say, what is that supposed to be? You can just say, shrubs. You have to come back to see the big reveal of this quilt. This is not going to look like anything yet. Right? Oh, bread. Catherine, I have not made bread in a few weeks now. But I am probably going to break down and make a loaf of bread tomorrow, because when I made the jam, oh, it was so good. And Harlan says we have to have peanut butter jelly sandwiches. And he is absolutely right. So I'll probably be making a loaf of bread and it'll be ready for when he gets home. Now I have a huge mess to clean up, y'all. And what I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna do this yet because I wanna finish pressing those seams open. But I'm gonna bring in my good pointy tip Black & Decker and I'm gonna open the rest of these seam allowances open, okay? I wanna open them up, press them, and then I'm gonna flip this over and press it from the front, and I'm gonna use some steam. And when I do, like, see this? All those seams are open. I didn't struggle with that. This one I pressed my seams to the side, so that was not a struggle, right? But this one I opened my seams up and I did not struggle, but I was using my pointy tip iron and I didn't cut anything off the ridges either. So there's that. But when I use steam, because I'm opening those seams, look how flat that's going to lay. Yes, there will be thickness because of the seams being open with the interfacing, but the front's going to lay really nice and smooth flat like that. Yeah, I am convinced I'm struggling because of the roundness of this iron. It's a great little iron. It is so hot. That iron gets super duper hot. And it's nice to have, you know, it's the perfect size for working in small spaces. But for a job like this, I really think it's time to bring that back out because it would be so much easier. Look, I have little bits of paper and everything. That's going to stay in this quilt. It'll be a hidden little secret in this quilt. My other ones will not have that because I'll go back to the glue stick. All right, that's what I'm going to do. Glue stick. So here we go, y'all. Are you convinced if you want to make the pixel quilt? I promise you, you probably won't struggle the same way I did. Once I press this, I am going to square it up. See how this one is nice and square with no extra interfacing on? I'm just going to take my ruler and a rotary blade and square up the edges so that the interfacing is flush with the edge, right? And when I come back next week, this block will be finished like this, okay? And we're not going through all the sewing and the pressing every week. We'll check in. But one of the things that I did want to tell you is I think it would be fun with this quilt series. If you want to, you don't have to. But if you're making this quilt and you're like, oh, I wish other people could see what I'm doing because I love it. It's so much fun. It's so pretty. I wish, you know, I could show everybody. I feel like perhaps not every week, but maybe every other week, I would do a post on Creative Crew and you could send a picture in the comments of the post if you wanted to share. And each week I could do a little show and tell and show off your work. Y'all see mine all the time, right? So I thought, you know, each week we meet, I'll fuse my pieces maybe. Because I think in the big scheme of things, that doesn't take that long. But I'll do the sewing and the pressing in the evenings, you know, through the week. And then we'll meet back on Fridays. And I'll fuse new pieces and we'll do show and tells of your stuff too. So I think that would be fun. Lisa says, I may try it with junk fabric, but this scares me. Lisa, I bet you are a Picasso and you just didn't even know it. I bet you don't even know it yet. It's really not hard. And I know I struggled today with the glue sticking to the paper. It's alive, you know, so if things are going to go wrong, they're going to go wrong. The glue doesn't usually stick to the paper. And then pressing the seams, you have options, right? You can press them open, use a pointy iron. Or you can snip and press them to the side, right? You certainly could do that. That's what I did with this one. It's just you gotta do some snipping, which I don't like doing the snipping. Did I even snip this one? Doesn't look like it, but I guess I did. I don't remember. I started this like last year sometime, and then we said, oh, we'll do it after Christmas, and it's already halfway through this year. So it's been, wow, almost a year since I did that experiment piece, right? So I can't tell you what I did. All I know is I'm looking forward to making this quilt with you, and I hope you give it a try. You know, see what you think. Lisa, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You swap out your, oh, I was supposed to do a dark green square there. Oh, that was supposed to be yellowish green. Who's gonna know? When this is all together, who's gonna know that? Right? Look at the page. You don't even have to, you know how I went through and I labeled them A, B, and C. You don't even have to do that. Some people are gonna say that's too much work. I just wanna look and see, okay, light green, okay, light green. Dark green, okay, dark green. And work like that. And that's probably even more freeing and free-spirited and whimsical than what I did today, right? That's more planned out, more strategic, right? More complicated than just looking at the sheet and saying light green, dark green, middle green, dark yellow, light yellow. All right, y'all. Miss Dolly is stirring around. It's getting close to her supper time. It's definitely my supper time. And I've got a huge mess to clean up. Then I'll break out my pointy iron over the weekend and get this pressed up nice and pretty and squared up, and I'll have it ready to show you next Friday. I'm trying to think if there's anything going on this weekend. I don't think there is. So I'll see y'all for sure next Friday. We'll be back revisiting the Pixel quilt. I don't know if I'm releasing one block or two. We'll see. And get all your files down in the description box below. Okay? Y'all have a safe week, and I'll see you next Friday, okay? Bye.
In the quiet of the evening light, with needles dancing, stitching inside each patch a story. Every thread unbinding love and fabric where we belong. Every stitch a whispered prayer. In every corner